Everyone was bustling with thoughts on your relationship status, your dating choices, and your sexuality when they made the deadly error. They remember the precise time they made the mistake, which was sitting among their friends all together. As they spoke about you, this individual leaned in close to you and took in every word. In addition to analyzing your texts, the group also evaluated your dating history and hypothesized about the most intimate times in your relationship. They had judgments about how you expressed yourself, beliefs about who you should be with, and incessant criticism about your sexuality. They also had theories about who you should be with. Their preoccupation in your private life appeared to be nearly compulsive, like an obsession. This person allowed themselves to be swayed by the collective voice of the group, rather than keeping boundaries between himself and others. They started looking at you through the lens of other people's perceptions, allowing rumors and speculation to impair their judgment. Something that started off as a casual curiosity eventually turned into an inappropriate investment in elements of your life that were never anyone else's business. Because they are now confronted with the results of their acts, they are overcome with feelings of regret. When they look back, they realize how foolish it was to take part in those chats and to listen to individuals who treated your sexuality and love life as if they were entertainment. Instead of being an eager participant in something that was never theirs to discuss, this individual wishes that they had shut down those discussions instead of participating in them. It's possible that they knew you through shared connections, through overlapping spaces, or through the faint murmurs that go faster than the truth. They weren't your friend, and they weren't in your close circle, but they were aware of you. They observed, investigated, and constructed silent narratives about you without ever asking for your perspective. They did this from a respectful distance. It was not necessary for them to be in close proximity to you in order to develop a fascination with you. Rather, it was merely fragments of you that were handed out by other people who should not have spoken on your name. This individual had a number of questions about you, which eventually developed into fantasies. On the basis of things they heard, things they assumed, and things they projected, they formed entire emotional tales according to their assumptions. The voices of other people are allowed to construct the framework of their perspective, and they allow gossip to become the gospel doctrine. The structure that they constructed was not genuine. Rather, it was a shrine to a phantom that they had painted with their own weaknesses and misguided admiration. In the past, whatever they thought about you was filtered via sources that were tainted with contamination. They were warned by their friends that you were transactional. People have referred to you as manipulative. It was disclosed to them that you employed your attractiveness as a weapon, and that you moved with purpose only when it was advantageous to you. And because they were already drawn into your gravitational field and captivated by what you had to say, those words sank deeper. They did not realize it at the time, but they were not thinking for themselves. They were not thinking for themselves because they were being influenced by second-hand accounts and the hatred that other people had toward your authority. You are here for a reason. If you feel the call, answer it. Click join to unlock exclusive content, deep insights, and a powerful community. This isn't just a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the chosen. Despite this, there was something within them that would not let go. They were unable to stop thinking about you, despite the fact that they were constantly being warned and judged. Their obsession deepened in secret, unspoken, yet profoundly felt by both of them. It was not simply a matter of attraction. Rather, it was a mixture of curiosity and longing. Along by a developing feeling that everything they had been told about you was something that was not quite accurate. This wasn't about love, at least not yet. It was about the draw. It was about the way your presence lingered in rooms you hadn't entered, and it was about the way your name made their heart twist, even if they pretended it didn't. They observed from a distance, yearning for clarity and yearning for the truth. However, rather than making an effort to connect with one another, they chose to maintain their distance. They chose to remain concealed behind their presumptions because they were frightened that going too close would either confirm the worst possible scenario or change everything that they believed they understood. Those opinions were not formed by them on their own. Rather, they were planted there by someone else, carefully and skillfully, using the kind of manipulation that is disguised as care by a mask of concern. When your name was spoken, there was a person in their circle who was constantly there and who occasionally made comments that were a little bit excessive. There was no overt display of jealousy, and it was not loud. The operation was discreet and surgical, and it was designed to look out. As if they were doing them a favor, this individual planted the seeds of doubt and distrust in their minds. They expressed their concern through riddles, saying things like, "I just don't want you to get hurt." And they did it in a perplexing manner. However, their concern was not a neutral one. Rather, it was tainted with bias. There is something about them that I do not trust. You were portrayed as someone who was dangerous, as someone who was crafty, as someone who exploited other people for pleasure or clout, and as someone who discarded people like accessories at the end of their usefulness. The worst aspect about it all, it wasn't because they wanted to believe it. Rather, it was because the story was something that perfectly matched their fears. An explanation was provided for the tension that they experienced, as well as for the manner in which you stirred something within them that they did not comprehend. That being the case, they clung to it as if it were a lifeline. You went from being a person to becoming a cautionary tale. The influence of a third party did not have any feelings of affection for you. Rather, they were engaged in a competition of silence, either with you or with the concept of what you could bring to life in the person to whom they were whispering. Perhaps they were frightened by your magnetic presence. Perhaps they were concerned about the information that your presence would reveal. As a result, they fabricated stories while pretending to be truthful and claiming that they were providing safety. A conflicted and insecure fan of yours bought into it, not completely, but enough to make it work. Their thoughts about you started to be filtered through a lens of distrust from that point on. When you posted something that was daring, they perceived it as being calculated. When you were frigid, they referred to you as being aloof. In the event that you were kind, people questioned your decision. Your authority was misunderstood by them as manipulation, and they interpreted your quiet as arrogance. Nobody ever gave any thought to the fact that the characteristics that other people saw as negative were, in fact, the qualities that shielded you from turmoil. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. They began to have a distorted internal discourse over time. What had started out as a mystery had evolved into a perplexing mixture of yearning and mistrust. They made an effort to account for their emotions by asking themselves why they felt compelled to be attracted to a person who, according to the opinions of everyone else, ought to have been avoided. On the other hand, regardless of how many cautions they were given, they were unable to disengage from the pull. There was a voice that was always present within them, and it whispered, "You are not completely seeing the truth." What they did not realize at the time, but are beginning to see now, is that the rivalry was not about love. Rather, it was about energy, power, and light. The sort of light that you carry that causes people to feel uneasy. The kind of authenticity that others strive to distort because it reveals what they themselves do not have. It was this that sparked the lies. It was this that supplied the illusion with fuel. Your admirer had to learn the hard way that truth cannot be outsourced, and they had to learn it the hard way. In order to be chosen, it is necessary to experience it. They experienced a deep aching in their spirit that would not go away, a subtle dissonance between what they were taught and what they truly felt. It began slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. It was then that they started to notice the flaws, the inconsistencies, and the poison that was concealed beneath the so-called counsel. As time went on, the voices that were all around them started to lose their authority. The individuals who had previously been perceived as allies started to feel more like distractions. Their laughing had developed a hollow quality, and their advice was self-serving. There was a peculiar clarity that began to emerge in its place as the illusion began to disintegrate. However, they had allowed others to convince them that they knew you, even if they had never actually known you. The time at which they finally asked themselves, "Why do they care so much about someone who isn't even here?" was the moment when they reached their breaking point. The answer to just one question completely overturned the entire story. The realization that their so-called support system had been projecting their own fears and jealousies onto you, and that they had voluntarily played along with it, was forced onto them as a result of this. However, this is no longer the case. First, there was complete silence, and then there was a gradual withdrawal from the noise. They discontinued their participation in the conversations. As a result of the jabs, they stopped laughing. Not only did they remove themselves from the people, but they also removed themselves from the energy that had previously made it simple to mistake you. There was no drama, there was no loudness, and it was a sacred moment. As they shed their skin, they were exposed. It was then that God began to speak more loudly, leading them away from codependence and closer to discernment. They began to put their faith in their gut instincts once more. Moreover, when they looked inward, really looked, they came to the realization that something had been buried beneath the surface the entire time. A profound, almost sacred sense of knowing when it came to you. A resonance that had been ignored, rejected, and pushed down beneath layers of manipulation and noise. They started questioning everything, particularly the versions of you that they were being fed from the beginning. In addition, whenever people questioned it, their hearts responded with the truth. You were not chilly. Rather, you were careful. It was not manipulative on your part. Rather, you were strategic. It was not that you were detached. Rather, you were guarding your serenity. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place all of a sudden. And it wasn't because someone gave them the truth. Rather, it was because their soul began to reject the falsehood. This realization was accompanied by pain, the grief of wasted time, the grief of knowing that they had participated in your defamation, even if it was just passively at most. However, there was also the suffering that came from the realization that the individuals they trusted had never truly had their best interests in mind. The severing of those links was a terrible experience, but it was essential. Those sounds were too loud for them to carry, and they were unable to communicate with you. To finally see you through their own eyes, they had to walk this portion of their journey by themselves, with humility and with the aim of seeing you for the first time. You're not here by chance. Feel the pull. Tap join to unlock truth, purpose, and a tribe that gets it. This is more than a membership. It's your calling. And now, in the void that has been left behind by all of that separation, a more profound truth is emerging. This truth is not only about you, but also about them. The kind of person they want to be, the kind of energy they want to cherish, and most importantly, the kind of love they now recognize they were never intended to be afraid of. During the entire time that they were falling apart, you were also falling apart. They were unaware of this fact. You were fighting against silence while they were fighting against the voices of others. During the time that they were questioning whether or not you were genuine, you were questioning whether or not anyone did in fact see you. God was able to observe the ways in which you and this other person were reflecting each other in ways that neither of you could see. Weaving synchronicities, dropping signs, and arranging divine timing were all things that God had been observing during this time. What appeared to be a distance was actually protection, and what appeared to be rejection was actually redirection. You were not adversaries. Rather, you were reflections. Two souls on the verge of awakening when they were distorted. It was not out of malice that you began to withdraw, but rather out of a desire to protect yourself. Your name was surrounded by eyes, assumptions, and a shifting vibe, and you could sense all of these things. When they were silent, your intuition yelled louder than they did. There was a warning that something was not clean. It was a sign that someone was projecting their own desires and concerns onto you, which they had never had the confidence to express out loud. Nevertheless, in spite of your prudence, there was a subtle discomfort, a spiritual paranoia that arrived in the middle of the night. Is it possible for me to trust anyone? Is it inevitable that love will always feel like a threat? Your faith in God allowed you to persevere through those questions, since the answer was already being revealed on their side. In a different form, paranoia developed throughout time. A flood of humiliation washed over them each and every time they entertained the idea of reaching out to others. Whenever they thought of your name, a fresh memory would come to the surface, consisting of what they had heard, what they had believed, and how they had allowed the voice of another person to be heard more clearly than yours. The reason they feared your strength was because they did not comprehend it, and the reason they feared your silence was because they had not sufficiently earned your truth. But there was reverence hidden behind that terror. Your energy was never meant to be interpreted by hearsay. Rather, it was meant to be experienced directly. They were beginning to feel what had always been true. Your energy was never meant this way. It was then that God began to use the suffering as medicine. The pain turned into a large mirror. They started to realize that their concerns were similar to yours. You, who was constantly on the lookout for treachery, and them, who was scared of being vulnerable. You are hurt because you were misunderstood, and they are afraid to be seen. There was never a simple matter of attraction. Rather, it was a matter of evolution. The connection you shared was not a typical one. Rather, it was crafted with the intention of stripping away illusions, breaking both of you out of your previous habits, and bringing clarity via chaos. This was not a form of punishment. Rather, it was alchemy, which is a heavenly refining. Both of you were being cleansed of erroneous beliefs, past wounds, and karmic noise during the process. Those individuals who were unable to honor the connection were being removed by God. This included every betrayal, every blunder, and every doubt. The love that you two shared was not constructed via words. Rather, it was created in energy, and no amount of distortion could destroy what was safeguarded by divine timing. This was the reason why everything was leading to a more profound realization. As of right now, the paranoia is altering. There is a dawning of serenity. It is gradually becoming the truth. God is mending both of you, but not by restoring what you have lost. Rather, He is preparing you to take hold of what is to come. And while you are making preparations, the connection is growing in a way that is both quiet and powerful, in ways that neither of you completely understands yet, but that both of you feel. They were not prepared for things to get to such a level. What was once a curiosity eventually grew into a yearning, and what was initially a judgment eventually transformed into a want. In addition, they are unable to shake the weight of it, which is the way that your energy remains on them, like a perfume on clothing, or like a song that is stuck in their head. You continue to haunt them, not in a malicious manner, but in the manner that the truth does when it is neglected for an excessive amount of time. As a result, they find themselves pondering what it might have been like to know you in a genuine sense, not via rumors or fantasies, but through genuine connection, through presence, and through the truth. In their peaceful hours, they spend their time reliving moments that never occurred, picturing discussions they wish they had had, touches they never exchanged, and words they never said. Despite this, they are unable to figure out how to approach you. The walls that have been constructed by their silence and your boundaries are now in place. The feeling of humiliation prevents them from uttering the words, "Please open up to me," which they would like to express. To put it another way, how can you ask for access when you have misinterpreted the spirit of another person? How do you express yourself when you are aware that you have allowed others to speak for you? This is not lust. Rather, it is something more profound. It is the kind of draw that causes them to experience a throbbing pain in their chest, the kind that causes them to stare at your photographs for way longer than they ought to, and the kind that causes them to feel your energy in crowded areas even when you are not present. They fear that you have completely excluded them from the plot, and they are concerned that the narrative has already come to an end before it even had a chance to start. Still, they are unable to let go of it. They have come to the realization that the worries, wounds, and distorted reflections that they chose to project upon you were actually their own fears and wounds. It wasn't that you were cold. Rather, they were afraid of warmth. It wasn't that you were scary. Rather, they were worried about how they may react when they were in your sight. They called it discernment and wore armor at the same time. Due to the fact that they had never witnessed love being held with such a powerful force, they mistook your grace for a trap. In each and every moment, God is demonstrating to them how very wrong they were. And while that clarity is beautiful, it is also heartbreaking because they now know what they have lost access to. It is not just a relationship, it is a version of themselves that they could have discovered by knowing you. You embodied something sacred, something that was unfiltered, and something that was transforming. And rather than showing respect for it, they chose to keep it at a distance. At this point, their fantasy has teeth. It is tinged with bereavement. They are no longer consumed by the desire to possess you. Rather, they are consumed by the desire to be seen by you, to be known in a manner that is not filtered through shame, to demonstrate to you that behind the silence and missteps, there is depth, there is sincerity, and there is love. There is a whisper that says, "You could have had this if you had trusted your own heart." However, for the time being, they maintain their silence. It is not because they do not care. Rather, it is because they care an excessive amount and are unable to comprehend how to reconstruct what they have never had the guts to assert. This connection was never about possession. Rather, it was about transformation through and through. A route that was not one of comfort, but of truth, was laid out by God from the very beginning. It was cruel, beautiful, and unyielding. Each and every delay, each and every miscommunication, and each and every moment of misjudgment was supernaturally permitted to compel growth. It is becoming clear to them that love is not solely about the person you desire. Rather, it is about the person you become when you are in the presence of that desire. Additionally, you have been their most influential educator without even being aware of it. God is demonstrating to them how to let go of control, to stop micromanaging every emotional response, and to instead surrender to the flow of divine energy. In the past, they would shield their emotions by maintaining a detached stance, concealing themselves behind rationality and the viewpoints of others. But that armor is beginning to crumble. At this moment, their spirit is becoming aware of something ancient and holy: the fact that not all relationships are intended to be secure. Some of them are designed to tear you down and then reconstruct you so that you are more in line with who you really are. Rather than teaching them how to trust people or situations, they are being instructed to trust the timetable of God. This is not a lesson about chasing you. Rather, it is about becoming the version of oneself that is in alignment with what you deserve. For the reason that God is not only protecting you from them, but He is also protecting the relationship from the portions of them that have not been healed. Love that is not aligned with one another is chaos as they are learning. The turmoil that they brought to your door was the result of their lack of knowledge regarding how to carry clarity. While this is going on, God is working through you to teach you how to maintain your magnetic presence without putting too much effort, and how to let your energy to speak more loudly than any explanation. You are not required to defend your identity, nor are you required to correct the erroneous narratives that they have presented. Your calmness serves as a protection for you. You are coming to realize that what is intended for you does not require any further persuasion. It will recognize you even in the absence of words. Without making any justifications, it will come back with reverence. Such a vibrant classroom is a divine environment. Despite the fact that the tests are karmic, the results are holy, not as a form of punishment, but rather as a form of preparation. You are both being honed. It is being demonstrated to you what it is to love without losing oneself, to maintain openness without being porous, and to maintain a softness that does not let one become broken. There is no amount of gossip, meddling, or delay that can come close to affecting what God has protected. Both karmic and codependent relationships do not exist here. The depth of this is deep. The classes are challenging due to the fact that the connection is limited. In addition, God knows that both of you have the capability of holding it once you cease attempting to exert control over it. They are coming to the realization that this is not about regaining what was lost. Rather, it is about becoming someone who is truly deserving of what is meant for them. What about you? You are not waiting. Rather, you are being aligned. You are showing faith. You are getting up. God makes one reality abundantly obvious to you as you go about your life. The things that are meant for you will not force you to chase, perform, or shrink. When it arrives, it will be fully conscious, totally healed, and completely prepared. It is no longer possible to deny it. Not even they are able to avoid the symptoms from appearing